Hello, my pleasure seekers, and welcome so much to today's episode. This one is a cheeky little solo app, and I know I haven't done any on this show. And I realized that a lot of you love to hear my story and where things have come from. And I really also want to tell my side of things as to why I've now got into breathwork. And this is the next kind of step for me, as always, wanting to help people feel safe in their bodies, feeling pleasure in their bodies, enjoying things more in their life through their body, not just stuck up in here. Okay. So, um, as you all know, I'm very honest about my old past and like disordered eating. And I never want to be someone that's like, oh, I'm Jesus, I'm healed, because that's not the case. Like, I just have a lot of tools in my toolkit now, and I know what to do if something arises, if I can feel in my body, if I'm going to go down and pick up that bag of biscuits and make myself sick or starve myself for 3 days. Those are the tools that have literally kept me alive, kept me flourishing, and also regulated my nervous system. Because at the end of the day, what I learned for me is that my disordered eating had come from a number of things, but one of the main reasons was I hadn't co-regulated or learned how to co-regulate my own nervous system. So if I was going through a time of stress, someone had triggered me, or I didn't want to speak my truth, that would be my go-to thing. Hence why I would do it a lot. So this all began when I was 8, is my first memory of when I was aware of like food and how it can change my body, how it can change my appearance, how it's the stage where you're starting to grow up a little bit. You may be getting a little curvier in some places, but you're also realizing that you are an attractive person. And that's what I had. And there was this deep fear that was built in to me through my caregivers being their own way and thinking how to protect me, was that by being an attractive woman was an unsafe place to be. Therefore, my body wasn't a safe place to be. So I then wanted to remain as small as possible through any modality I could. I mean, I'm 5'1". I am a short person, but obviously like size and weight wise was like my goal. And I consistently weighed 4 stone. I don't know what that is in kgs. I don't weigh myself anymore, but I consistently weighed myself from the age of 8 through to 14. And that is the weight that I maintained. It was like, I always remember it was like 444. I was never into like angel numbers or anything then, but I don't know why it always just kind of came to that, just over the 4 mark. And when you get to like 14, I mean, it's a very small frame. I was numb from everything. I was afraid of everything, and food was obviously my go-to way of kind of like clinging on to life and like controlling everything. And then it just became, well, was a pure addiction to suffering. So then I went down the route of eventually, admitted to my mum like I was ready to see a therapist, because obviously she didn't want to take me to a therapist unless I agreed to it, and I'm a stubborn person, so there was no agreement to it unless I was going to physically go. And that happened at 14 when I was sent to an all-girls school for behaviour. I also just didn't really pay much attention to school. I was very smart, and I kind of got things quite quickly when it came to obviously speaking like Englishes, the languages, public speaking, all those kind of skills. Apart from maths, fucking hated maths, and science was only interested in like biology, obviously. So that part I just didn't care. So I got sent to an all-girls school, taught how to cook, clean, sew, and just rebelled because I hated every second of it. And when I left that school, I was like, this isn't right, like there'd be teachers watching me eat every day, making me eat chips every day, which was not anything I would encourage anyone to do. And then I would obviously rebel even more. Then I got to the point where I then start to learn how to hide my food. And So I would tick that box with the teachers, they'd leave me alone after lunch, and then I would, do whatever I needed to do. So I went to see a therapist at 14, and I remember him saying to me, what we want you to do is journal your food diary. And I was like, fuck no. No way. Like, I didn't like eating in front of people then. Why would I want to put it in a journal? And so that became my love-hate relationship for journaling at the time. Still not a big journaler. But anyway, so I then got into this loop of therapy, and I think therapy is amazing. I think anyone that is brave enough to step up and have therapy, whether it's for themselves, a child, or in a relationship, I think it's an absolute game changer. I do, though, realize for me, I was in therapy for 16 years until I was 30, 17 years until I was 31. And I was looping over and over and over and over and over again, the same circumstances, the same childhood wounds, the same patterns, the same behaviors. And it didn't take me until 27 actually to admit to a therapist my eating habits. I would talk my way out of it. I'd talk about childhood memories, traumatic things that I remembered, things that happened to me when I was younger, and just get stuck in that shit in my head and give it fuel and give it power to affect my future and my life, and to literally feed it, excuse the pun, but I was literally feeding it. So I then started having panic attacks at 27. And when they started, the first thing that triggered them was that I had promised myself that I was no longer going to make myself sick. And that was it becomes an addiction. And I'm so nervous even sharing this today. But it becomes an addiction. And some people probably listen to thinking, ew, because I know people have fears of being sick and all those things, but it can become like a real addiction. And so I stopped that at 27, and then for a period of time, and then I had panic attacks because my nervous system didn't know how to regulate. I didn't know what to do. I was feeling all these emotions, and how was I going to release them? I then started doing marathons. I then would be at the gym nonstop. I mean, I did love working out. I love exercising. That's just who I am. But it was to an extreme where my body did not want to be in this position. And then I got the best reality check of my life, or one of them, when I came off the pill and I didn't have periods for 4 years. I didn't have natural periods for 7 years. And so I had a gut feeling. I just knew intuitively that I wasn't going to be able to provide children, that my body wasn't healthy enough to be able to do that. So I got tested just as I came to Australia, and yeah, the answers confirmed exactly what I knew intuitively, and that was my body had gone into pre-menopause, which is basically what it says on the tin, as if your body doesn't feel safe enough to provide children, to be a home for growing a person. And that is when I was like, fuck. At the time I was 29, and I was like, oh no, because I've always known in my lifetime that I'm having children. I am the one in my family that wants to have children. My brother is gay. He's in the most amazing relationship, and both of them don't want children. And I've always known since a little kid I was going to have kids. And so I was like, I need to work on this for me. So this is, firstly, it's not passed on to my children. And secondly, so I can freaking have them, and really shift a lot of different generational things that have happened in my family into these new age children. I'm not going to say that they're women amazing, but these different kind of children that might be taking on these behaviors. And so I then started doing probably what a lot of people do, and was given things like food plans and learning how to eat, but being told to have 3 or 4 meals a day by a nutritionist. And that is great. taught me a lot around how to know that it's okay when my body changes to eat. I still didn't weigh myself. I still don't weigh myself now. And yeah, it kind of taught me that way of life. But then I know in myself, if I'm not hungry, I'm not hungry. And I don't like someone telling me to eat when I'm not hungry. So that was kind of a different battle that I worked through. And anyway, what happened was I realized how much time I now had in my hands. I was no longer obsessing about food, obsessing about when I could next make myself sick without anyone realizing. I was no longer in that place. But my God, do I have a lot of spare time? So obviously, when you have all this spare time on your hands, I realized how off-centered my nervous system was, how I was literally all over the shop all day, every day, like constantly nervous, constantly anxious, constantly triggered, just constantly running away from things. And then naturally, I came across Breathwork. And I actually, funny enough, came across Breathwork before I left for Australia. And the guy, well, the breath guy in London, shout out to him, came up to me and was like, "You don't know how to breathe." And I was like, whatever, like it's breathing. And then I realized that I'm constantly out of my body. Like I was constantly not present, not aware, not in who I was, and listening to my intuition, which had made a lot of mess and a lot of growth and a lot of learning from, because I had never listened to my intuition with the people I was dating, the circumstances I was letting myself in, some of the friendships that I was in, some of the lifestyles that I was doing, the places I was living, like so many different elements. I'm not saying all of them were wrong, because they weren't. There are some amazing things during that part of my life that I learned, but I wasn't intuitive listening to my body because I was never in my body. I was in flight and I was on fight. And no wonder my body didn't feel safe enough to, for me to have regular cycles, for me to feel healthy, for me to co-regulate, and for me to feel relaxed without needing a massage. I mean, I'd even have a massage and I'd be like, oh, on edge. So you can imagine what my sex life was like, pure performative from my side. Anyway, so I then realized I couldn't breathe. I also know when I sleep at night, it's the only time I'm quiet, because people always say they can't hear me breathing. So I became very aware of how I wasn't in my body 90% of the time, but yeah, I was in my head the whole time. Hustle this, hustle that, gotta get this done, gotta do that. And very much a high performing person that been on a fight or flight. And as a kid, that's what I programmed myself to do. I programmed myself to get good grades at school. I programmed myself to do well in sport. I programmed myself to look a certain way, because I was constantly on this high achieving bandwidth. Anyway, so 27, go on holiday with 2 girlfriends at the time, have the most horrific panic attack, one of 2 of the worst I've ever had, and no idea what it is to start off with. For anyone that's not had one, amazing. And I know they're different for everyone, but for me, I couldn't breathe. Like, it was like I was dying. It was obviously extremely hot because it was Dubai. And I was just streaming with tears, but I wasn't crying. It was almost like I'd got too much sun cream that I'd left on my eyes, and I was just streaming. And at the time, I knew of Headspace, the meditation app, and I was starting to meditate in my own way, which is a whole other story. And I remember being on Headspace for doing 4 hours straight of meditation and not getting into anything, not being in anything, not having any idea what I'm supposed to be doing, and just thinking, how the fuck do I get out of this? But knowing in my soul that I was not gonna do anything with food during this time. And thank God I actually then had a therapy come through literally that night. Like, it was granted in my work at the time. And I started this whole chapter again of having therapy, of having speaking therapy, of with an amazing woman, but once again, still going through the same things over and over again. The mother wound, the father wound, the abandonment stuff, all of that. And then moved to Australia and felt a lot better. Things felt, I was in this whole new environment, so much healthier in my body and my heart and everything. And then obviously got this ovary pregnancy, infidelity setback, and was like, something's not right here. And so I then went on this journey of really being in my body, because I knew that's what I was terrified of. And the fearless part of me was like, we're fucking going in here, because this is enough. And that is when the power of breath came into my life, and I probably started practicing it. And it was through Wim Hof. It was the old aggressive, like, and I know Wim Hof is amazing, and there's so many good breathing parts that I love to incorporate with people if it feels right for them, if they feel like their body can go there. And that is purely their own decision. It's not mine. You have autonomy over your own body the whole time. That is the best thing about breath. Like, your body. No one else does. No one else can give you the advice. No one else can be attuned to their body like you can. Like, this is your superpower, and it is magic. So flash forward to being very much more in tune with who I was, and very much leading a very healthy, active lifestyle for me. Got my cycles back, started to learn the superpower of my cycles as well, and to be very in flow with who I was. Then I decided to do an ayahuasca trip. Fuck. And I will always say now to people, and I wish I heard this, but maybe I went through this to tell people, only do it if you have the right support around you. And when I say the right support, I mean people that have done it, people that are open to holding space for you, and therapy, people that know this world, because it's not a classic therapy situation. And basically, the way ayahuasca works is it taps into your subconscious. It is the equivalent of doing 50 therapy sessions in one go. And the reintegration afterwards is the most powerful thing out of the whole process, because what you're shown is what you need to work on, or what you're meant to use in this world. And if there's no reintegration for you, if it's like, yeah, dip your feet in the soil, have a great time, bye hun, go back to your job on Monday, seriously get the right support. And for me, I have a very active brain. I tap into things really easily, really quickly. I've always been very intuitive and very attuned with other people's emotions, more than my own, which has now shifted. But I came back from that, and I was just having panic attacks every day, and I couldn't leave the house. I flew back to the UK last year, and I remember being in Scotland with my brother being like, I cannot leave my bed. And I wasn't even sharing it with people. There'll be people listening to this now that are friends that are like, I had no idea. And what happened to me is I would always say to myself, there's something about breath, there's something about breath. People need to tap into this more. And I was so overwhelmed by what I had seen and how I was going to use this in my life and what I was going to go through with next. Knowing what I seen through my ayahuasca journey, which I did twice, 2 nights. So that's 100 therapy sessions. And there was a woman there, and to this day, I always thank her when I see her, who was a breathwork mentor. And I didn't know this at the time. And when my panic attacks were like absolute peak in bed all day, it would get to 5 o'clock and I would have not left the bed for the day. And she taught me how to breathe. Sounds really freaking simple, right? That saved my life. And I knew when this work came into my life that this was a big thing that I needed to teach people. And I know a lot of people think this is really woo-woo, this is very out there, this is new, but it isn't. If you learn how to tap into your system, co-regulate your nervous system through anything on a daily basis, you can handle life so much better. You can think clearer, you can act clearer, you can be in more fulfilling relationships, you can prevent the mistakes that you may see in 10 years' time by being present in the body. And what I say to people is this is awakening as well as healing. So if you have that procrastination, which all of us do, we're humans, fuck, I can't tell you how long I procrastinated getting onto this recording today. But if you have that, for example, there's techniques you can learn through your body to release that trapped trauma. You don't even need to know, you don't need to know what the trauma is, I must say. You don't even need to know. That's the other thing, right? We don't need to get stuck up here. It's in here, and 80% of your trauma is in your body, 20% is in your head. And so when you go to a speaking therapist, you're just replaying it over and over and over in your head, but it's stored in your body, wherever else in your body, it's stored. Breath gets it out. You're clearing it out. And you have the ability to choose how quickly you want to go, how slowly you want to go. And this is the other thing that a lot of people don't want to hear, myself included, is that it's not a race. So what I say to my clients is if you that day want to follow how your body feels rather than we've got an hour slot, let's go full on to hour, let's blitz it, gross. I'm not going to be the person to work with if that's how you feel. Because the goal, there's no goal, but the intention here is whatever you're feeling and whatever you need to work through. So if you need to listen to your body and follow what your body needs that day, that's what you should be doing. It's not like a blitz, forget, smash it out. That's when you re-traumatize things. And that's often sometimes when you see people from breathwork sessions coming out and being really like discombobulated and really like, oh my God, like, what am I doing here? Like I would say it's the equivalent to coming out of an ayahuasca journey sometimes. And it's not fair on you and your nervous system to keep re-triggering yourself. So for anyone out there that is looking for tips on how to find the right breath work, who to work with, what kind of things to do, there are so many different options out there. But if your goal is to feel safe in your body, to reignite your intuition, because that is so powerful. If you're outsourcing your intuition to 24 different healers, to your husband, your partner, your best friend, your boss, I don't know, anyone in your family, anyone in your life, you're not being authentic to yourself. And of course you want advice. Like if we ask for advice, that's the best thing about community and connection. It's amazing. But you know everything inside you. If you want to be living the way you want to live, you have to go through your intuition. And if someone says to you, hey, we can release this with you through the next session, we can do this in the next session, that is creating a codependency. You're becoming codependent on that person. You're just shifting what trauma you have within you onto someone else. And then when you stop seeing them or stop working with them or stop dating them, you feel this like anchor has been like pulled from your body because there's an addiction there to the person. You're outsourcing to them when you have everything inside you. And if you learn breath work to tune into your body, to tune into your heart, to tune into any area of your being, you know what you need to do. And that's fucking confronting for a lot of people. And that is why we have been conditioned to look at mindset the whole time, to think out in our minds, to outsource things, to look at the external for things. And it's not the way. Like you're just playing into what everyone else is doing. So there's a little rant from me. I also want to say this is super fun. So, I do a mixture of sessions, but for me, my main thing is I want you to feel safe in your body. I want you to leave knowing how to regulate. I'm here as a support mechanism. I'm not here for you a long time, honey. I've not done my job if you are still with me, say a year to 2 years time. It's more like I'm here to help you learn to release emotion, learn how to co-regulate, learn how to connect. It can be connecting with yourself. It can be connecting with someone else. One of the most powerful things you can do in a couple is breath and breathe. If you do 20 minutes a day, for example, this is a whole other podcast, but quickly, if you do breath work with a partner for 20 minutes a day, you are so connected with each other. And it can be a lifesaver for relationships. And it's the most simple thing. But if you regulate your own nervous system while with someone else in a safe space, it's the biggest game changer. So anyway, there you go. So keep an eye out is what I'm trying to say for tips around like different breaths, different breath works. I will be opening up my membership towards the end of the year. And as you know, I am a big advocate for talking all things pleasure related. And this is where breath work is so important, because this is how you tap into your pleasure. Doesn't need to be sex, can be sex, but it can be pleasure in life. But the most important thing is that your nervous system is fully regulated and you're doing whatever the fuck you want to do in your business, your life, your marriage, your family, whatever, because it's all in here. Anyway, I love you and I'll speak to you soon. Mwah.